Hello class, welcome to this course in Dispensationalism. Our first lecture will be an introduction, and so let's go look at the slides. Let's look at the etymology of the word dispensation itself. The English word dispensation is an anglicized form of the Latin dispensatio. Three principal ideas are connected to the meaning of the English word: the action of dealing out or distributing, the action of administering, ordering, or managing the system by which things are administered, the action of dispensing with some requirement. The scriptural use of the word dispensation, we see the verb oikonomeo is used in Luke 16:2, where it is translated to be a steward into English. The noun oikonomos appears 10 times, and you see the references in the New Testament, and is translated steward, manager, or treasurer. Oops, didn't mean to do that. The noun oikonomia is used 9 times and is translated stewardship, dispensation, administration, or job. Features connected to the word dispensation as it appears in Luke 16. Luke 16:1 reads, "Now he, Jesus, was also saying to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and this manager was reported to him as squandering his possessions. And he called him and said to him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an accounting of your management, for you can no longer be a manager.'" So let's see here in this verse that there are two parties involved. One whose authority is to delegate duties, which is the rich man, and one whose responsibility is to carry out the duties, the steward of the rich man. Specific responsibilities we see here in this verse. The steward failed in his known duties when he wasted the goods of his Lord. We see also the element of accountability. A steward may be called to account for the discharge of his stewardship, for it is the owner's prerogative to expect faithful obedience to the duties entrusted to the steward. A change may be made at any time unfaithfulness is found in the existing administration. Features of the word dispensation from other New Testament passages. Men are responsible to God for their stewardship obligations. Faithfulness is required of those to whom a dispensational responsibility is committed. A dispensation is connected with time and may end at an appointed time. Dispensations are connected to specific revelation from God. And we see that the references to that. 1 Corinthians 4:1, Ephesians 3:2, Colossians 1:25 support that. And here we will read 1 Corinthians 4:1. "Let a man regard us in this manner as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God." Dispensation and age are not exactly interchangeable. Paul states that the revelation of the present dispensation was hidden for ages, meaning simply a long period of time. At least 3 dispensations are mentioned by Paul. In Ephesians 1:10, he writes of a dispensation suitable to the fullness of times. In Ephesians 3:2, he writes of a dispensation of God's grace. In Colossians 1:25 and 26, he implies another dispensation preceded the present one. So let's look at the definition of the word dispensation. Some theological definitions. The Scofield Study Bible states, a dispensation is a period of time during which man is tested in respect to his obedience to some specific revelation of the will of God. The dispensations are a progressive and connected revelation of God's dealings with man, given sometimes to the whole race and at other times to a particular people, such as Israel. On man's part, the continuing requirement is obedience to the revelation of God. This obedience is a stewardship of faith. Although the divine revelation unfolds progressively, the deposit of truth in the earlier time periods is not discarded, rather it is cumulative. And so we see a continuation of a definition. We looked at the Scofield Bible, now we'll look at Charles Ryrie. A dispensation is a distinguishable economy in the outworking of God's purpose. That comes from the textbook. To summarize, dispensationalism views the world as a household run by God. In his household world, God is dispensing or administering its affairs according to his own will and in various stages of revelation in the passage of time. These various stages mark off the distinguishably different economies in the outworking of his total purpose. And these different economies constitute the dispensations. The dispensations, the understanding of God's differing economies is essential to a proper understanding of his revelation within those various economies. And then we see Clarence Mason Jr.'s definition. The word dispensation means literally a stewardship or administration or economy. Therefore, in its biblical usage, a dispensation is a divinely established stewardship of a particular revelation of God's mind and will, which brings added responsibility to the whole race of men or that portion of the race to whom the revelation is particularly given by God. Associated with the revelation, on the one hand, are promises of reward and blessing for those responding to the obedience of faith, while on the other hand, there are warnings of judgment upon those who do not respond to the obedience of faith to that particular revelation. 6 elements are seen in a biblical definition of a dispensation. God's distribution of the divine arrangement. So he's the one who reveals what he expects. Man's responsibility. His stewardship. Then man's will be tested. A test of man's obedience and faith to what God has revealed. A time period for administering the arrangement. That's the time period is really what we define as the dispensation. A rule of life for man. God's judgment follows disobedience. So we see the elements of a dispensation. The relation of the dispensations to progressive revelation. Progressive revelation is the recognition that God's message to man was not given in one single act, but was unfolded in a series of successive acts and through the minds and hands of many men of varying backgrounds. The marking off of stages in the revelation of the purpose of God is the basis for the dispensational approach to interpretation. Dispensationalism has a broad enough unifying principle. God's ultimate purpose is to bring glory to himself, to do justice to the unity of the progress of revelation on the one hand, and the distinctiveness of the various stages in that progress on the other. So, you see my sources here. The material for this introduction what came from C.E. Mason's Eschatology, and we see for a course that he taught at the Philadelphia College of the Bible. Charles Ryrie, his textbook on dispensationalism, and C.I. Scofield, the Scofield Study Bible. And that concludes this recording.